Hey guys, and welcome to this tutorial on the Charon local UI. It's an interface that allows for interaction with the Charon contracts, which make it possible to make cross-chain transactions, all in a local environment for top-notch privacy. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, first things first, you need to head over to the GitHub repo and download the zip file. I have a link to this in the description. But after this is downloaded, we'll be able to interact with the app and start configuring it before booting it up. So once that is downloaded and unzipped, we can finally open this package in our VS Code. First, we install the dependencies by typing npmi. If you're having trouble with this step, it probably means you don't have node, npm, or git installed. So you definitely need to have those before proceeding. Once that's finished, we can go over to the next step. So in this step, we need to actually configure our env file. We can do this by copying our example file like so. Once that's copied, I have to set some variables like the private key of the address that we want to use for the application to send and receive transactions. Next, we need to set our node URLs. Here you can use Infura to get those, or if you have your own nodes running, that would be even better. And finally, we also need to let the application know whether we want it to run on testnet or not. Set this variable to true for testnet and false for mainnet. With all of this set up, we can finally boot up our application. And we're just going to type in npm run start. This is your dashboard where you can view your address and balances for each network. If you intend to use CHD for transactions, you can consider registering your public key. It's not a mandate, but it facilitates others in knowing your Charon address. I've already registered my address for convenience, as you can see, so this part of the screen will also have a button that says register instead for you. This is also where you will find a handy tool that converts your private key to a public key, a nifty function we'll dive into later. But just so you know, a public key is used for private transactions. So next we have our primary interface. Here you have your CHD balances, both public and private, on each network. This screen might take a while to load when interacting with it for the first time, since it's fetching our balances from the blockchain. But up here you see your own public key, used to send private transactions to. For convenience, you click it and it will copy itself to your clipboard. Here at the top you can see your total CHD balance, which is derived from the two columns below. On the left side you can see your public balances for CHD, and on the right side your private balances. And these are for all three chains, Sequoia, Mumba, and Shadow. Now let's see how we can interact with these balances by executing some transactions. Here we have the sending interface. This is where the magic happens. On top, you can select the network from which you wish to send your CHD. It gives you the flexibility to either transfer all of your CHD on a specific network by hitting the max button, or specify an exact amount based on your requirements. Alright, let's see how we can do a public transaction. Let me just send 5 CHD tokens to my own address. And there we go. The transaction was successful and mined on the Shadow network. Next we'll interact with the real magic of Charon. As you can see in my balances, I have about 689.69 CHD in my private account. Let's round that number down for convenience by withdrawing 9.69 CHD and sending those tokens back to our public account. Okay, and now as you can see the transaction was successful. Let's refresh the page and see our balances. So as you can see, my public balance went up and my private balance went down back to 680. So besides withdrawing from our private balances, we can also send CHD privately from one private account to another. The only difference here with a public transaction is that you need to use the public key generated by your private key, as we saw in our first screen where we used the tool to convert this. Here I've put in the public key of an account I created for the purpose of this video. And now, just to show you that I've actually received those 10 CHD on my other account, I will now go to my balance, let this load for a bit, and we should be seeing an increase of 10 CHD, and there we go. There's been 10 CHD privately added to my account. And now on to the bridging section of this application. This is the actual part that allows you to make your CHD tokens private. In order to make them private, you have to bridge them from one chain to another, using this model. You can choose either to bridge wrapped ETH or your CHD. When choosing ETH, the tokens get deposited into the AMM pool and the equivalent amount of CHD gets bridged to the other chain. And when choosing CHD, your tokens get burned and minted on the other chain. For this video, we'll bridge some of our wrapped XDAI. We can check our balances in the trade section of our app, which we'll discuss later. You can also press the max button here to send all of your tokens. Once your tokens have been sent, you need to wait for 12 hours for them to show up in your actual balance. This is to maintain security and privacy. And now onto our trading screen. Here you can effortlessly swap tokens for CHD and vice versa. A unique feature to note, when swapping CHD for a token, it doesn't follow the conventional curve. Instead, the CHD is burned when tokens are withdrawn from the pool, preserving the balance. Alright, let's swap some wrapped ETH tokens to CHD to test it out. There we go. I have 3,596 ETH now. Let's refresh the page and see our balance updated. And as you can see, we lost our 50 ETH and gained some CHD instead. Let's now check our auction interface. Here you can place bids on the CIT token. We have a weekly auction where 10,000 CIT tokens are minted and conducted on Gnosis chain, accepting WXDAI as the token. What's more, all proceeds contribute towards system rewards for various functions. Since this is testnet, it uses wrapped ETH to bid on the Sepolia network. Let's try outbidding the top bid now. As you can see, we need to have a bid higher than the top bid. So 0.5 wrapped ETH will not do it. Let's try 5 wrapped ETH instead. And there we go. We are now the top bidder. If we retain this position until the deadline, we will be able to claim the 10,000 CIT. And if we get outbid by someone else, we get back our wrapped ETH and we can bid again if we want to. Lastly, we have the CIT interface. The Charon system operates using the Charon incentive token. It is minted weekly through auctions and distributed based on a user's balance across all chains. It incentivizes system use and encourages activities like Oracle function and liquidity provision. Revenue, mostly from trading fees and auction proceeds, is distributed via the Charon fee contract to incentivize oracles, yield farming, usage farming, and staking rewards. You can claim distributed rewards on each chain by pressing the claim button. However, please note that this feature is still under development. And that wraps up our tutorial on the Charon UI. I hope you found this guide helpful. Feel free to drop any questions in the comments section, and I'll be more than happy to assist you. Thanks for tuning in, stay encrypted, and happy transacting.